Hello, children. Today is Good Friday of Holy Week. It is the day that we remember when Jesus died. I'm going to share the picture, which is of the three crosses out in front of our church building. It's a reminder of what Good Friday is all about. I'm also going to read to you from the Lion Read and Know Bible, the story of the crucifixion. There's really no good way to share this story. It's hard to hear, but it's part of who we are as Christ followers. It's part of how we understand and grow in our Christian faith, and I will share it with you now. The crucifixion, as read in Luke 23 and John chapter 18 and chapter 19. The Roman who had been appointed governor of Jerusalem was a man named Pontius Pilate. He did not have a great deal of interest in the religious traditions of the people he ruled. He listened wearily as the chief priests told him about their prisoner. "He's leading our people astray. He's telling people not to pay taxes. He's claiming to be the Messiah." That's our word for king. Pilate questioned Jesus himself. "He's no threat to me or to Rome," he thought to himself. "My choice would be to release him." The priests were dismayed at his decision. They argued their case back and forth till Pilate knew he had to put an end to all their nonsense. "All right," he said, "I'll have him whipped and then let him go." He glanced outside. "Look," he added, "the crowds are gathering. It's time for me to release a prisoner as a Passover privilege. I'm sure they'll want Jesus. He has been popular, hasn't he? I'll go and ask right now." But the crowd outside had other ideas. Their hero was a well-known rebel, and they chanted his name, "Barabbas! Barabbas!" Pilate looked down in astonishment and lifted his hand for quiet. "What shall I do with Jesus?" he asked. "Crucify him! Crucify him!" they screamed. The anger of the crowd made Pilate nervous. He was afraid they might riot if he didn't give them what they wanted. "Well," he announced, "Barabbas goes free. Jesus gets the death sentence. I'll give my officers the order at once." Jesus was marched away. The soldiers loaded a beam of wood onto his shoulders. "You carry your own cross," they laughed, "and you've got company. There are two more who will have to make that short but memorable walk to Calvary Hill." When they reached the rocky hill just outside the city walls, they nailed Jesus to the wood of his cross and hung him up to die. The two criminals were nailed to their crosses on either side. Jesus looked down as the soldiers began to share out his possessions. He looked at the respectable people who had plotted to have him put to death. He said a prayer. "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they are doing." For 3 hours, Jesus hung on the cross. The noonday sun slid behind a shadow and the sky went dark. People came to stare at the executions. Some jeered, others wept, among them the women who had followed Jesus and who had believed in him. Then Jesus cried out, "Father, in your hands I place my spirit." And then he died. Not long after, a man named Joseph arrived with a little group of helpers. He had been given permission to take Jesus' body. He and his companions were going to give Jesus a decent burial. Not far away, a rock-cut tomb was ready. They loaded the body onto a funeral stretcher and carried it away. Some of the women who had followed Jesus from Galilee came too. The mourners did not have much time. The sun was sinking low in the sky. Its setting would mark the beginning of the Sabbath day of rest. Hurriedly, Jesus' body was wrapped and placed in the tomb. The women watched to see what was done before the stone door was rolled shut. "We'll come back after the Sabbath to wrap the body properly," they agreed. "And then we can use the traditional spices and perfumes as well. Then the sun touched the horizon line. The clouds went red for a few moments and then faded to gray. Nighttime was upon them all. This is the hardest day of Holy Week. It's a day we wish didn't have to happen, but we know that it is part of Jesus' life and a part about his death. We know, though, as Christians, what is to happen next. I'd like to share with you a couple of pages in our children's Bible that tell more about how a funeral might have happened during this time. On this page in our children's Bible, you'll see a little bit about a funeral and how death would have been handled during biblical times. Once a person had died, their body would have been carried on a pallet, much as in this picture, to a place of a tomb. A tomb would have been inside a cave where it would have been cleared out for a place to put the body. At the door of the cave there would have been rolled a large stone to keep the tomb closed. The women would have been coming back to anoint the body with oil and spices, much as was customary during this time. The body would have been washed and wrapped in strips of cloth, and then it would have been laid in the tomb for safekeeping. I know this is the hard part of Holy Week. It's the part where we remember how our Jesus gave of his very life for each and every one of us. But it is exactly what makes us Christians, how we believe not only in the death of Jesus, but in the resurrection, in the Easter story. On this holiest of Good Fridays, we remember the gift that Jesus gave for each and every one of us. Though it is a hard story, it is an important story. There's no fun activity to do today other than to spend time with your loved ones. It's important on holy days that we spend time with one another. This is a sad day in the Christian walk. It's a day where we remember that Jesus died. And like life, death is a part of our earthly life. We lift up today those who are grieving, those who have lost loved ones in the past year. I hope that you'll take some time to spend together today with your family and with your loved ones and lift in prayer one another this special Holy Week. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we celebrate Silent Saturday and I share an additional story with each of you.